Our co-chair.
Rely on them. Okay. Senator Jay will join us in just a minute. I'll come back.
We're going to vote on the meeting schedule.
We did do a little bit of rearranging around the agenda. So co-chairs will go through a couple of logistics. That's helpful for setting the stage for it, given this is it's subject to open meeting law, so it's predictable meeting schedules. We'll stop at public comment, still at 11:35. For those of you waiting to comment publicly, there'll still be an opportunity there. And then we'll roll into next steps.
All right, so with that, Jennifer already put up the timeline, and I think folks are aware in the group what our schedule is, but we do need to adopt this schedule so that the public can stay informed about when we're meeting. I would say that the schedule could also still change. And if it changes, we'll post a timely notice on the webpage. But in general, this is the schedule that we're agreeing to for this meeting. And so I guess I need to say, is there a motion to adopt this schedule? I don't think we need a second, actually. So all those in favor of adopting the schedule as proposed, please say aye. Aye. There are any opposed? And just a logistical notes, a few of the meetings are going to start at 8:15, and that's to try to maximize our time with Senator Watson. That's it on the schedule. We're going to continue with a hybrid model. Seems to work pretty well today. And if you have input, feel free to share that with us. And
You have a question?
Sorry. Are we getting to voting? Discussion, or will we discuss that? Sorry.
Voting procedures?
Yeah.
yes,
Let's wrap up with hybrid, you were saying.
yeah. So we're in, right. I was just saying, hybrid is going to be continue to be an option. So if you need to be, it's great if you can be here, and if you can't, we welcome you to participate via Zoom. And the JFO will have our website. So because we're not a standing committee meeting, we're a separate work group meeting, and that's where you'll find our documents. And then, yes, we will talk about our decision-making procedure. And Jen, do you want to tee that up?
Yes, so I have a draft paper. Those of you online, I don't know if you got this online, actually. Let me go over this just verbally so you all have some information. In general, it's hard to imagine where the decision points are going to fall in this group because a lot of this is based on discussion and understanding, analyzing. However, in the event that a decision needs to be made, all attempts will be made for building consensus. And of course, that's a really high standard. So when you have to make a decision, the following suggest should apply. Quorum must be present in order for a formal vote to take place. Not a straw poll, but a vote. Quorum is 50% of that 50% of the working group members are present. A majority vote, a decision means that a simple majority of those present have decided for something. I've noted here that summary notes and minutes shall reflect the reservations noted by those in the minority decision. That's a source of information and education going forward, but also just good for good process. Straw polls and temperature taking measures shall be forecasted in advance of meetings whenever possible, so that if you can't be here and you wanted to weigh in or get some of those opinions known, there will be avenues to do that. That's a little tricky with open meeting law. So I am still wrapping my head around what that's going to mean for those of you who have to miss a meeting and need to get some input in. More to come on that. In the instance of a spontaneous vote, the note here, communication to the entire membership shall effectively flag that the decision was made, and you'll have a certain amount of time. And here we've said, we have not noted actually how much time, in order to contact the co-chair if you weren't here, missed a vote, and want to register your opinion. I don't know that we're going to need that procedure, but it's there if you do. Questions, comments?
Explanation. So in terms of quorum, members are present. So I would just want to be sure that we're clear about what it means to be present. Is that online and in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the meeting. Do you have a question?
Or designee.
Or proxy?
Yeah.
Proxy. That is a question actually that I think you need to discuss, but proxy votes?
What do folks think? That seems reasonable to me, but I don't.
Proxy votes allowed, okay?
I'd like clarity on whether or not the two members that we had that could send representatives,
If they're members
if they wanted, or I would like clarity on whether or not they're doing that. Particularly when we're talking about
Quorum,
quorums.
yeah.
And
Right, so you have
proxies.
18 or you have 20, right?
Yeah, right. Who are those two?
So in Hyde Parks. So
They were invited,
Oh,
but they did not name somebody to the group.
okay.
Okay.
So I think
Is
they
that
didn't- they
the
didn't-
assessment that they're, yes.
Did they responded?
One of them responded that they were working on it, but I haven't heard since. So I'll follow up with them again.
But the other didn't respond.
Can we get an assessment by the next meeting?
Yeah.
As to whether or not they are in or out, so we know for numbers.
Yep, great. That's homework for the co-chairs, let's have a note. Other comments, questions? I know this is a little bit dry, and again, it's there if you need it, which is helpful, because you don't want to figure out your decision-making process at the moment that you need it. Okay. It'll be written up, it'll be in your summary note. If there are other questions that are raised, this is the fallback. What would you like to do for adopting them?
I guess, excuse me, similar process. Are we prepared to do that?
Yes.
All right, so is there a motion to adopt the proposed voting procedure that we just discussed?
So moved.
All right.
I'm sorry, I don't want to lie. Just let me ask a clarifying question on proxy vote. Does that mean we need to send a designee, or can I designate Peter, for example, as my proxy vote?
Oh, what a lovely question.
To me, it meant you had to send a proxy.
I agree with you. So that's what I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it really makes the numbers of quorum all very more interesting, doesn't it? But yes, proxy vote means another person.
Can I ask, can I just further clarify?
Yes.
Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel, do you want someone sending a proxy to send written notice that they're sending a proxy in advance? So alerting either the co-chairs and or Assortia that they would be sending someone in there then before they actually do something.
Yeah, that's a good idea. 24 hours in advance,
Sure.
at least 24 hours in advance. Seems reasonable.
By written notice, just send you an email?
For the legislative members, co-chairs, do we also get to assign a proxy?
That's great, I was wondering. Two proxies. Good luck finding someone.
Well,
What do you think?
but I'm
Yeah, I know,
serious.
yeah.
So I might have to miss half of one of our meetings.
Yeah,
And so normally I would probably give my proxy to one of the legislative members, but I'm hearing us say that we need to send someone else. And so I'm,
that's really interesting. Did that ever come up?
So I have a thought. My initial legal analysis is because the language is different on the appointment of the members, the legislative members, as opposed to the representative members from the individual groups. It seems like a proxy makes sense because each entity is allowed to designate their representative. It is a little bit different because the speaker and the committee is appointed specific people. But that being said, you are currently adopting the rules for this committee, and so I do think you have some flexibility because you're not adopting like Robert's rules or a preset set of rules. So I think that you have the ability to make that decision right now.
What do you think?
No pressure,
I
but
can't imagine sending a proxy, but I would probably give my vote to you if I knew what was coming. If I didn't, probably wouldn't vote.
what's it gonna be? And then we'll move to public
I
comment.
think we don't have legislative proxies and we'll.
Okay, there we go.
And that may happen in practice. You don't have legislative proxies, but if you are to send a proxy, please give advance notice and with 24 hours, it's very helpful and will save you time in the long run at the start of every meeting while we figure out who's who. Okay, so with that amendment,
With
then,
that amendment, is there further discussion? That was good. All right, all those in favor of adopting these procedures to vote, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, we've adopted our rules of voting. Do you want to still take public?
public comment, you have 4 people online.
Yep.
We're online, and then maybe ask this group.
Okay. So we have about 10 to 15 minutes, 10 minutes or so to just take public comments. And the other thing too is there's always, if you have longer remarks than what we can share right now, you don't want anyone to feel constrained, please feel free to send to the co-chairs your written remarks, and we'll make sure they're shared with the full group. But so I'll take names as I have on this list. Dave Mullet.
Well, how many, can I just have a quick
Ask
show of
how many in
hands?
this room.
How many in this room are on, have?
Who's that gentleman?
Dave Mullet.
Two.
Okay.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to be in there. Okay. So let's we'll do the Zoom members first, and then we'll. So I hate to be in this mode already, but we are. I'm going to ask people to speak for 2 minutes, and again, if you have more to say, please feel free to send your full remarks to the co-chairs. We'll make sure that full committee gets them on the big part of our public record. So I'd like to start with Bob Atchison. If you are on Zoom with us still?
He's not on Zoom yet.
On Zoom yet. Okay, so I'll pass over. Annette Smith. Good morning.
I'm Annette Smith, Executive Director of Vermonters for a Clean Environment. I am on the Department of Public Services Stakeholder Advisory Group for the Renewable Energy Standard. So I've been a little frustrated listening to the conversation this morning without you actually having the scenarios in front of you, which I was looking at. So I would like to offer some comments. I think that Lewis Porter's question was really the most important one to actually first look at. What are you trying to accomplish here? And also what Peter Sterling said about, are you just updating what's there and changing percentages, which and specific resources like nuclear or biomass, or is this an opportunity to actually look at a renewable energy standard with a fresh lens? Some of the things that, I mean, we're very limited in the Department of Public Service review to choosing different models. And I would encourage you to not be too focused on those models. But for instance, 3 of us on the group, one from ANR and one from a regional planning commission, and I have said, we need to look at siting. It came out at the last meeting that one of the proposals involves increasing tier 2 that would involve adding 60 megawatts of wind or solar a year. Now, what does that mean in reality when we've had a standard offer program for years that has been a total of 120 some megawatts, many of which haven't been built? Another comment that I've suggested that we look at, that you all could look at better, is I was very surprised that this res was set up so that the utilities could use homeowners' recs to meet tier 2. I thought tier 2 was going to be requiring utilities to purchase contract for new in-state renewable or build their own. And that's not what's happening. And so tier 2 is sort of, I don't know, not doing what I think was the intention. We are not talking about tier 3 at all. And so in the res, and the other comment I have based on what I heard today was that I read a lot of energy news, and in terms of costs may have come down in the past, but right now there are a lot of supply chain issues. Everybody's talking about the challenges with costs rising. So Ken Nolan is right on with that one, and I'll be interested to see the data. Don't get too bogged down, though, in this data and percentages. You have an opportunity to look at one of the big problems we have in Vermont, and that is siting. We need to work together in a process that is not developer driven, but that works with communities and the utilities to put the resources in the right places where they're needed. And we're fortunate on the DPS group, which you should look at the members. It's a good group. We have Doug Smith from GMP, who is, the technical person who can actually provide us with good information. And there are other good members too. So I think that's probably 2 minutes, and thank you very much for the opportunity to comment. And I appreciate the work that you're going to be doing.
Thank you, Annette. I'd like to go on to Pike Porter.
Yeah, thanks for taking my comments, and thank you all for the work you're doing. I had to step out for a little bit, so I couldn't hear all of the conversation, but for the time I was here, I didn't hear anything about any reference to Vermont's climate action plan, which directs Vermont to 100% carbon-free electricity. If that is not a scenario, and because I'm not part of your group, I don't know the scenarios in front of you, but if 100% carbon-free electricity is not a scenario that you're looking at, then it needs to be. We need to get rid of natural gas. We need to get rid of Hydro-Quebec. We need to get rid of Highgate and McNeil, and we need to find 100% solutions. The Climate Action Plan suggests urban solar, placing solar in parking lots, et cetera, et cetera. Rhode Island has done this. France has done this. There's dispatchable hydropower down in Massachusetts that's not utilized right now since the closing of Yankee. Vermont, biggest strength are its forest and its sequestration and storage of carbon. Other New England states are blessed with offshore wind energy potential, and we have to take advantage of that and work with our strengths. And so I'd like to push back against Ann Watson's comment early on that we need to create more Vermont in-house electricity on a large scale. I don't believe that's the case. I think we need much smaller scale solar in urban areas, and we need to look at offshore power, and we need to decarbonize our electric grid altogether. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bob Atchison, you're up. We're asking people to be brief, 2 minutes or less, please. And if you have full remarks, please send them to the committee and we'll circulate them.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for a chance to speak. We're, as some of you have noted in the earlier comments, climate change is on our doorstep. We are being led to our deaths by the fossil fuel death project, and it is really time to assess what's going on here and make some drastic changes. It's for my grandchildren, your children, your grandchildren, and ourselves, and the health of civilization in general. That said, we need to stop burning things and we need to start using less. And if you could figure out some way to incentivize, I'm a member of the Washington Electric Co-op, and I remember the day when below a certain number of kilowatt hours used per month, the rate was significantly cheaper. That may be a model that some of the other utilities might want to try to pursue. And maybe that's not the way to do it, but at least it was a little bit of thought in there going on. As far as renewables, if we can't do it in this state, then we have to be very careful that we're not in somebody else's backyard and ruining somebody else's property or whatever else by doing that. That's the big trick of the oil companies, and smacks of climate injustice as we go along. So I'm hoping to hear more, and I celebrate the progress that at least we're doing this. I was an early adopter of solar. I've been a solar consultant, and I presently work as the energy coordinator for the town of Plainfield. So I have a lot of different views and thoughts on things. And I would hope that if you have any questions, you could ask me to weigh in. I'll cut it off there, but keep doing the good work, and just maybe the governor might even want to consider declaring a climate emergency somewhere along here and bring those powers into service, as should our president. Thank you.
So to our guests, before going on to Dave Mullet, we hope you'll continue to follow a group and participate in other meetings as we go forward. So thanks for coming at the outset. Good morning.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you very much, everyone. David Mullet, General Counsel of All Earth Renewables in Williston, and three brief points that I think will fit well within 2 minutes. First, known so many of you for so long in so many different capacities, sometimes arguing with you, sometimes working with you, but awful lot of both. So number one, thank you for the time, the skill, and the integrity that just surrounds this room, the screens. It's really, really first rate and an honor to be here. Second, the co-chairs and others have mentioned the importance of public process today. And I want to reinforce that as a member of the public in my, albeit in my work capacity, that with the amount on everyone's plate, if we can have a well-defined and expansive notion of public process so that we all use our time respectfully and well, that'd be very, very helpful. Third, I think this piece is probably a ways down the line, and I listen to the expansiveness of this morning's discussion, but All Earth believes strongly when we get to specifics of res reform, there is a place for offsite net metering. We should be looking at everything, of course, very thoroughly, not with a presumption that everything stays the same it is, but we think with a thorough analysis, we'll see opportunities for community solar, smaller scale siting, Vermont communities. So that's something when we talk about that down the line, after reading the scenarios with everyone else here, and we want to be very specific in what we're thinking and why, but as I say, I think that's down the line. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Crowell.
Hi, thanks for all the work you're doing, and thanks for being here, and thanks for the opportunity to share a couple of thoughts. I'm just going to limit this pretty much. I've also been part of the stakeholder group that you've been talking about, and I guess my comment there is that I think if you had a chance to see the scenarios and have them explain a little bit, the anxiety level would drop a whole lot, because there are some pretty reasonable scenarios and a range, some that I wouldn't be happy with, but they're in there, and probably some fine tuning, but probably most importantly, my sense is that all that's going to amount to is kind of a rough idea of in several different directions, and there's going to be a lot of fine tuning involved after that is seen. So ideally, there'd be some kind of iterative process involved where it happens again once you get a better idea. Anyway, I think look at those scenarios and try to understand them, and you'll feel better about it, I think. The second and the last thing I'll probably bring up is on the idea of cost. When we're talking about the cost of any of these scenarios, there's an assumption that costs get rolled into rates. And so we have, the idea of cost shifting of solar or net metering, creating a burden on ratepayers. And that's true. But it doesn't have to be that way. There are a lot of options for how to finance the transition. And if we do it in regressive ways, it's going to hurt people. So what I would strongly hope this group or the legislature does is come up with other ways of financing the transition besides just rolling everything into rates. Think about a green bank. Think about public-private partnerships or leveraging financing, or people are a lot smarter than I am about these things. But rates are probably the worst way I could think of for financing. Rolling all the costs of renewable energy transition into electricity rates is probably the worst plan. And that's how we do it. So I would urge, when you think about the cost, it's not it shouldn't be about rates. It should be about creative approaches. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And in terms of reminding people, so again, you can send things to the chair, we can, public comments, and then we can make sure they get distributed to committee members, go to our website. And for people watching, their joint fiscal office is hosting a website for this committee where our documents are going to be months. So I'll pause there because the next thing on our agenda is next steps. I don't know if you have anything to say, Jen, about that.
So some of the next steps are very clear, and then others we are going to say out loud and check for accuracy. The ones that are very clear, your next meeting is scheduled for September 20th. That begins at 8:30, if I'm correct. Co-chairs will be setting the agenda with planning team, and support agenda will be posted on or before September 18th. There will be a recording available on or before September 11th for this meeting. And you also asked for a summary of notes, for example, the slides that were presented. So we'll see what we can get in order to put that up on the website for future reference. Here's the part that we're going to be creating on the fly. So co-chairs, I'll need your input here. Ready?
Ready.
Oh, homework for the group.
Homework. Just what everyone was hoping for. So first is, Louis asked a question at the outset, one of those big picture questions. What are we hoping to do through the RES? Would you want to rephrase that question in another way?
No, it's exactly right. I would just say, I would guess I would rephrase it a little bit and say, what are people's most important single goal for the RES? Or most important single purpose for the RES?
Great.
So I'm going to, the way that this homework might get used, just to sort of prep expectations, it might be a warm up. It might end up being a warm up question rather than a full discussion in the interest of time and whatever you have for. So I don't want to pin these on any, I don't want to build the agenda right now just because.
We're in your hands.
Yeah. But that piece, I think you're saying, ask people to anticipate that question.
Well, and I was thinking, this is like improv theater.
It totally
We're making
is.
it up as we go. What I was thinking is if people sat down and wrote something briefly on that and sent it in, we might be able to, a week ahead, compile them and send them back out so people could see it, see what their peers are saying and think about it a little bit to sort of prime the pump for a conversation a week later. But we can
Us too.
All right. Well,
so are people okay with that? A week from today, just answering the question that Louis has proposed?
So there's that piece of homework to think about your goals for the RES. There's a bit of homework on scenarios.
Yeah, so second piece of, we've had a very healthy and still underway conversation about scenarios. So this is the presentation from August 1st that TJ was referring to. It includes 4 defined scenarios already. 2 more are under discussion. So I will, let's make sure it's posted on our website. Would people prefer to have it sent to them or have it just on our website?
Let's do both. They'll have a summary note posted to the website so you know that your homework is there, but it will also land in your inbox with the attachment so that it's easy to find.
Okay, great. And so, clearly we all want to look at these and figure out whether or not they cover the range of interests of the group. For those, I would say for people who feel like they see something omitted, the sooner you could write to the legislative members of the committee, or I'll just, I'll just say, please let the co-chairs know ASAP if you feel like something's missing, because we can, I won't prejudge. Let's just do that rather than wait 2 weeks to hear, because TJ Shop is in the midst of defining the final 2 scenarios. maybe there's latitude in those, so that if you found something that you felt was urgently needed and missing, that could be part of the discussion as those scenarios get finalized. I don't know, but with an interest of timeliness, if people could do that, that would be helpful.
Is your expectation or ask that those comments, will you be sharing them widely, or will you be taking them under consideration? Is that a private communication, or is that something you're aggregating?
The scenarios that may be quote unquote missing,
Yeah, omissions or concerns.
I would think we would aggregate them and circulate them.
Okay.
Let everyone see what everyone's thinking, be transparent, and prime the pump for conversation 2 weeks out.
Okay. So again, this will land in your inbox and be in a summary note with a couple discussion prompts to that end. And I think the expectation here is that you'll send those responses individually to your co-chairs. It will come back to you in an aggregate form. And that also becomes a public document. So I'll put that reminder back at the top. We owe you some slides and some links. What else?
We want to have any topics?
No, that's a great question.
So we have the 8 tasks assigned to us through the legislation. And in planning for today's meeting, we were talking about which of them were data dependent. So it's kind of interesting to got right into the weeds on data. It would be great for us to have you all look at these 8 and let us know which ones you think are data dependent that we'll either get data that's in the schedule from the 2 economists doing work for us collectively, or that you need to hear from someone else on. And if you need to hear from someone else on, please tell us who and how they can add value to the conversation. And if you think they're ready for discussion. So we're really in that, we're trying to make the best use of our time, things that we're waiting for, we can put off, things we can get to now, we'd love to get to now on these 8.
So great, thank you for reminding me of that. So there's, to make this simple for you, I think what I'll do is draft up a little worksheet, run it by the co-chairs to make sure it represents what they were expecting. And that way you can see these discussion prompts, respond to the ones that are relevant to you, talk to your constituents about those discussion prompts as you need to, and then get it back. And I think you're looking for a turnaround time of a week.
So we can use it to build the agenda.
Okay. So
And I'd say the scenarios, quote unquote, missing ASAP. If anyone feels like there's something they should have been, they'd like to see something.
So it says a summary note will be posted on or before September 11th, but we'll get that to you really soon so you have more time to work with.
Can I have one quick thing? Sheldon's reminding me of it. We want the agenda setting to be responsive to the group's discussions, needs, questions, et cetera. So I think 2 prompts I would share on behalf of the agenda builders is what questions do you have and who do you want to hear from? So that we can think about lining people up to speak to us and that we're aware of the questions.
And if you have thoughts on the agenda, feel free to send those to the co-chairs as well.
When you go to the grocery store for just a couple of things and then you end up with a large collection, it feels like the homework worksheet is getting very long. But the invitation is genuine. It's the menu for input, so the next agenda, you're prepared for it. And you have one more comment?
So, well, it was back to an earlier question that I had asked about the data with all of the utilities, if we could get that around the rates and the different procurement practices.
I don't know if TJ was in the room.
He wasn't, but Lewis said you've got all of that, just like that.
He put you on the hook there, TJ.
He volunteered you. Just so we have a basis of understanding how the res is impacting each of the utilities now. And construction projects. Is that the right term? It's probably not. Development?
Yeah. Do you understand the request that's coming?
I do not, but I could follow up afterwards.
I think it's good to be clear here. So I thought it would be helpful for all of us to understand where the utilities are currently in terms of each of the utilities, in terms of rates, in terms of net metering, in terms of projects that they're building, what they've got underway, just so that we have a sense of, Jenga that we are potentially,
So just to be clear, so we have net metering, installation, and other DG installation by kind of type and by, date, et cetera, by utility. Rates is a pretty big and complicated thing when you're talking about commercial rates. Are you just talking about residential rates? Because that's one thing, but commercial rates, and then it's, there's different rates, right? The first 100, some utilities, the first 100 kilowatt hours are one rate, and then the rest are a different rate. And there's a customer charge. And so there's a lot of.
I actually think that that's really important for us to at least have as a basis, something that we can refer to, because rates are something that is a priority for a lot of people in this discussion. Just so that we have something that is factual.
So on the residential side, we had, the last time we did that was sometime last year. There's been a lot of rate increases. And so we'll try and update it, but it's not something I have, that I can send today.
What is that? What's the effort involved in updating it?
That, I think that is not a big one. It's like grabbing all the current residential rates. The commercial side is a really big effort. We don't actually have that in one spot. And especially with, Green Mountain Power, for instance, has a ton of different commercial rates, right? So, and then there's like EV rates and, there's all kinds of, utilities have time of use rates. Some of them are used, some of them are not used by anybody. Do you want to, like the standard residential rate is the easy one to provide. All the other one, and the rest is a longer project.
So I have a clarifying question. We are running over time, but so how will that information be helpful?
So to the extent that we can ground all of our conversations in fact and not speculation, so that we know what we're talking about when we're talking about, there's going to be a 10% increase in rates. And the WEC rates and Stowe Electric rates and GMP rates may be very different, and their net metering rates within those may be very different. So it helps us kind of have a larger understanding of what's happening out in the world. Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe a little more willingness to dig in for problem solving.
So I think you just got a partial answer that residential, that some of that information is readily available or can be with a relatively light lift. Other bits of that information, not so easy to get, and therefore may or may not be coming.
Correct. The commercial one will be, is a big lift. I don't think we'll have that in the next week and a half or 2 weeks or whatever, but the residential one, I think we will.
Could I suggest residential rates and customer charges of various kinds? I mean, we have a relatively high customer charge, so leaving customer charge out of your residential rate would not give an accurate reflection of our total rate. So I would say residential rate and customer charge, storm charges, like those charges that are applied to all the residential rate payers would give you a place to start from without trying to sort out the commercial side.
We good?
Yeah, they'll comparison charge.
We have covered all of the business that was in the agenda and covered a lot of other grounds too. I think, and that was expected for a first meeting. I thank you for participating in the process, and on my behalf, I'm looking forward to working with you on the next agenda, and we'll figure out the path through these discussions. Do you have anything else that we need to cover before we adjourn?
I don't. Does any other final comments from members before we adjourn?
I would move